28th May 2023 is a very important date for all IAS aspirants as the UPSC is all set to conduct the preliminary examination. It is on this date that your years of aspiration, months of hard work will be put to test. I'm sure most of you would be worried about your current affairs revision and practice. But you need not worry because we at BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, we shall be bringing back our flagship Target Prelims 2023 free crash course starting from the 24th of April. In these sessions, we shall be covering more than 900 important current affairs topics through MCQ-based discussions. These sessions will contain in-depth explanations and expert tips to help you ace the exam. As always, these sessions shall be free on our YouTube channel, and all you have to do is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you on the 24th of April.
Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. It's a Sunday today, but I'm glad to see all of you be here right on time. It's 10 a.m., meaning that it's time once again to begin analyzing the today's newspaper. Today, we'll be discussing some of the most important articles from the mains and from the prelims point of view from the Hindu newspaper. As you know, on a Sunday, usually we do not have the editorial page for the Hindu newspaper. But it has a lot of articles, especially from the field of science, environment, etc. And this is what we will be focusing on. I hope all of you are doing good. Also reminding you, there is just one more day to go before the Target Prelims 2023 to come back on YouTube. As we have told you already, we have lined up for you 22 sessions to discuss the current affairs of the last 365 days based on MCQs. There's a topic-wise schedule that all of you should make note of. It starts tomorrow, that is 24th of April, and it will go on till the 15th of May. The first 4 sessions are of Indian economy, then Indian polity, then environment, ecology, science and technology, and international relations. There are government schemes, art and culture, places in news and reports, etc. Let's go back to where we were in today's discussion. These are the topics that we have taken up from the day's Hindu newspaper. We will be starting our discussion with the problem of stray dogs in India. There's a very important article about the problem of stray dogs and why is it that the current government policy is not sufficient to control the problem. Second, we'll be going ahead and discussing what is happening in Sudan and with respect to especially the Hakki Pikki tribe that is in Sudan. It's a tribe that has or that originally belongs to India's Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan. A lot of people of this tribe are stuck in Sudan. There are reports that the Karnataka government and many of the Karnataka leaders have appealed to the central government to evacuate these people from Sudan. Then we'll be discussing about India's new space policy. What are the outcomes of this policy? What is it that the government is trying to achieve? Then from the prelims point of view, we'll be discussing about a new launch from ISRO, where ISRO has launched 2 satellites of Singapore. Then we'll be discussing about how the central government is trying to achieve a drug-free India. Then in the end, we have 2 very important news stories about 2 very important festivals that we see celebrated all around the world. So these are the topics for discussion today. Let's begin without waiting any further with the very first topic. The first topic that we have today is on the issue of stray dogs. Now, I'm sure all of you would have seen in the past few months how there have been issues about stray dogs. A lot of news stories have come in that stray dogs, that is dogs on the streets, have attacked small children. Many children have even been killed just by the attack of these stray dogs. And this is not a very uncommon phenomenon. Unfortunately, in many cities across the country, from smaller cities and towns to bigger cities, we have these issues of stray dogs attacking either elders or the children. The problem here is, whenever someone tries to take action against the stray dogs, a lot of animal lovers or mainly dog lovers start to protest against that action. Animal lovers, dog lovers do not want any action to be taken against these stray dogs. This is where the problem starts. As per the author, the government of India does have a policy called the Animal Birth Control. There's a policy called Animal Birth Control ABC. However, as per the author, this policy is not effective enough. Why? Through this policy, you may be able to control the population of dogs, However, the problem is you still cannot stop the dogs from attacking. You still cannot stop the dogs from biting, from creating a ruckus. Also, those of you who drive a car or those of you who drive a bike, you also would have seen how they result in many accidents. Have you seen a lot of times when you're driving a bike, the dogs start to chase you and you are forced to turn your bike or to speed up your bike? Or in many cases, you are just driving on the road, all of a sudden a dog or an animal comes in middle and you are forced to put your brakes immediately. That also results in accidents. In fact, there is a report that says that dogs, or stray dogs mainly, are the second largest reason behind road accidents in India. Just imagine, second largest reason behind the road accidents. Yes, we all like seeing and sharing all those dog videos on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but the reality is, when it comes to stray dogs, they are a real problem that have to be controlled. Now, before we go deeper into this, let me ask you a simple question. Don't Google it. Tell me, according to you, how many stray dogs do we have in India? How much is the dog population in India? What do you think? Just give me a number in the chat. According to you, what do you think is the dog population in India right now? How many thousands, or lakhs, or crores, or 1,000 crores, or whatever you think? 20,000. Okay, someone is saying lakhs, 1.5, 10 million, 1.5, 1 crore, 10 lakh. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of numbers. Most of the numbers are actually wrong. Right now, as per the official data, the dog population in India is about 6.5 crore. 6.5 crore is the dog population of India. 6.5 is not even the population of a lot of different countries. There are so many countries around the world that don't even have this much population of human beings. But in India, we have 6.5 crore dogs. Now, see, when you talk about the problem of dogs, we are not talking about domestic dogs as such. The dogs that are domesticated, that are pets, they are fine. But the problem is with the stray dogs. The problem with the stray dogs is, number one, there is no one that is taking the responsibility of their vaccination. Secondly, if they bite someone, if they attack someone, there is no one to hold accountable. That is why the problem with the stray dogs has still not been resolved. As I said, there have been multiple issues of children and elderly being attacked by stray dogs. The government of India, long time back, about a couple of decades back in 2001, introduced something called the Animal Birth Control Rules. The most interesting part is this Animal Birth Control Rules were released by Ministry of Culture. These rules were changed recently in 2023 and the author here is criticizing the rules. The author is saying that the animal birth control rules are just not adequate enough to control this problem of stray dogs in India. Because again, the problem is that animal birth control or dogs birth control is mainly aimed at stopping their reproduction, mainly aimed at controlling their population. But the policy does not talk about how to stop the existing dogs from attacking. The author says that the policy is not implementable. Why? The author says there is no scientific method in which you can track the number of dogs who have been controlled or who have been vaccinated under the policy. There are no benchmarks, there are no targets under this policy. Every individual municipal corporation is free to undertake a census of how many dogs exist in their area and how many dogs can they sterilize. There is no target put upon them by the government of India. Now, when you give a free hand to every municipal corporation to decide how many dogs do they have, how many dogs can they sterilize, then the problem here is that you cannot be sure whether it is right or whether it is wrong. Also, the municipalities, because they set a target based on the budgets that they have, we all know how urban local bodies in India have very minuscule budget. Only a very few municipal corporations across the country have a handful of budget, while the others struggle for budget even to pay the salaries. So for municipal corporations, you expect them to first have money to pay salaries to their workers, only then they can spend money on the dogs. The other problem is, as I said, there is an issue with those who are considered as dog lovers. See, it is okay to be a dog lover, it's okay to be an animal lover, that is absolutely fine. But the problem is, if your love for dog is resulting in danger for someone else's life, then that becomes a problem. Because of the person's love for dog, a lot of people feed dogs out in the open. Now, as per the author, this is a big problem. You expect that if you are feeding a dog, the dog's behavior will change. But the problem is, when you start feeding dogs, it only results in more and more dogs coming in that area. It results into a pack of dogs, and then the fighting between the dog can also start because of the fight for food, because of the struggle for food. This is what becomes a problem. In fact, these cases that you read, 4-year-old attack by dogs, 3-year-old attacked by dogs, 4-year-old killed by dogs, all these are not because of one single dog. These are because multiple dogs or pack of dogs attacked all these people. This is why even feeding out in the open, you may think it is in favor of dogs, but it can go against human lives as well. The animal birth control also bans euthanasia of rabid animals. That is also a problem as per the author. India is the only country in the world that does not allow euthanasia of rabid dogs. Even for rabid dogs, as per the author or as per the policy, they should die a natural death in India. Means they are still a menace to the society. What does the author suggest here? Author suggests a few things. Number one, there should be strict pet ownership laws. You now know of different states in India. There are multiple states. For example, Haryana. They have made it mandatory that if you have a pet dog, you have to register it with the government authorities. So everyone should tell the authorities whose dog is it, so that if dog does something wrong, the owner should be held responsible. So there should be strict ownership laws. Then the author says there should be ban on irresponsible feeding in public places, which might result in more dogs coming together and forming a pack. We should also encourage adoption rather than leaving the dogs on the street, and we should also think of giving shelter to homeless dogs. Only in such cases would we have a better and a safer place for both humans and dogs. The problem, however, in most of these cases is about the expenses. See, at the end of the day, we are a developing country that doesn't have a lot of money for many human needs. The problem here is, when you do not have money for the needs of the humans, how do you expect the municipality or the government to allocate money for animals or for dogs on a priority basis? So there is a component of expenses also that is involved in this. Expenses for vaccination, expenses for putting up shelter for dogs. But as per the author, if we have to establish a society that is safe for both humans and animals, then we have to think about these expenses. Now, the animal birth control rules of 2023, as I said, are the center of this article. The animal birth control rules were first released in 2001. They have been changed slightly in 2023. As per the official data, there are 16 crore cases of street dogs bites between 2019 and 2022. These animal birth control rules were formed to ensure that the number of attacks by dogs on humans actually reduce. These rules were formed in line with the Supreme Court guidelines. The Supreme Court had given guidelines that relocation of dogs should not be permitted. Dogs should not forcefully be taken out of the area where they are living. Not just this, the rules focus on sterilization and immunization of the stray dogs. Local bodies such as municipalities, etc., panchayats in rural areas, they have been given the responsibility to take care of these stray dogs, to ensure that they are immunized, they are sterilized, and their population is controlled. Also, according to Family Welfare's Central Bureau of Health Intelligence, there have been over 100 cases of human deaths from rabies. Now, although rabies can be caused by multiple animals, but the biggest source of rabies disease in human beings in India especially is dogs only. In fact, over the last 5 years, over 300 people, most of which are children, have been killed by dogs. All this data has been given recently by the government of India in the Lok Sabha. So when there were parliamentary proceedings and questions were being asked about this issue, all this data has been given by the government of India in the Lok Sabha. And the author is saying that in order to control this problem, we need to think of proper solutions, and this current policy of animal birth control is just not working. There are a few important Supreme Court and High Court judgments also that you should know. For example, in 2012, Karnataka High Court had decided that authorities have the right to remove stray dogs and practice euthanasia also in cases where human lives needed protection. However, that was overturned by the Supreme Court later on. Supreme Court said that no, relocation of dogs should not happen. They also have their own animal rights. Apart from this, WHO in a report had said there is no evidence that removal of dogs has had a significant impact on dog population density or the spread of rabies. So just because we remove dogs from one place to other, it doesn't really mean that the rabies problem can be controlled. Rabies will only be controlled if you focus on vaccination for dogs. This is what you have to remember about these important judgments. This was our first topic for the day. Let me quickly take up a few comments before I move on to the next important article. I have a question. What is the stand of animal rights activists? As you can imagine, animal rights activists obviously are not in favor of any action against the dogs. They think that yes, animal shelters, dog shelters should be built. They are in favor of that. See, animal rights activists are not against vaccination. They are not against building of shelters. They are against cruelty. They are against euthanasia, etc. Euthanasia means euthanasia means putting someone to death or administering someone to death, maybe by giving them poisonous gas or injection or that kind of a thing. Then I have a question. Can the way forward be stray dogs? Okay, just a second. Just give me a moment. If you can just scroll up so that I can see certain chats. Okay. Can the way forward stray dogs trained for how they interact with humans and it's okay. See, it's easy to say that we can train stray dogs, but as we discussed, population of stray dogs in India, as per the government numbers itself, is over 6.5 crore. How do you expect training 6.5 crore dogs? That's not a possible solution. Training even one dog at someone's place takes 6 months, and thinking of training 6.5 crore dogs is not really the solution of this. So I don't think that's a very logical or implementable solution. Then I have a question. If the question comes in the mains, how should we give way forward? I already gave you the way forward. This is the way forward. The suggestions that have been given. This is the way forward. Just because I did not write here the words way forward doesn't mean that I had to specifically write them. The suggestions that are given here are way forward only. Will this question be asked in the mains? How can anyone tell you what question will be asked in the mains and will not be asked in the mains? If I would have been the UPSC examiner, maybe I would have been able to tell you. Then I have a question. Why our focus is only on dogs when major incidents are due to cows? Because cows don't bite animals, maybe. Because dogs bite animals, maybe because of that. So I'm not sure what is the connection between the two. Also, cows give us milk, while I don't know what dogs give you apart from love and affection. So yes, there is a big difference between the two. So let's try and be slightly more logical here for your own good. Can UPSC ask question on population of dogs? No, they will not. Don't worry. Okay, perfect. Let's move ahead then, because I think the questions are now getting more emotional about dogs. Let's come back. Okay. The next topic that we had is about what is happening in Sudan civil war. As you know, in the Sudan civil war, a lot of people from different nations are stuck, including many Indians. From India's point of view, mainly we are focused on the Hakki Pikki tribe that is stuck in Sudan. Now, we did do a big news video also a few days back about the Hakki Pikki tribe. It is important for us to understand What is the significance of this tribe? Why is it that they are specifically in Sudan? What are they doing there? How did they migrate? And also what is their status in India? Now, as you know, the civil war that is going on in Sudan, it's a war between their own paramilitary and their own armed forces. So the paramilitary and the army itself is fighting with each other. They want to get an upper hand over who will hold powers in Sudan. The unfortunate thing is that if you look at the history of Sudan, there have been multiple civil wars. They have never really had a very peaceful period. A few years back, they divided their country. A new country was formed out of Sudan that is called South Sudan, which is a separate country altogether. In fact, South Sudan is the newest country in the world that has been recognized by most of the other countries. So Sudan has never really had a very peaceful period. However, please remember, from UPSC examination point of view, when you see these kind of topics in the news, what do you have to read? You don't have to go into a lot of detail of why the civil war is happening, who is responsible for civil war. That will not be asked, don't worry. Because in international relations, the topic or the syllabus that we have, international relations ask you to study India's relationship with a certain specific country. So if it would have been in India's neighborhood where some impact would have come to India also, then I would have suggested you that yes, focus on what is happening internally. But what is happening in Sudan internally is not that important. What you have to understand from examination point of view is, number one, about this Hakki Pikki tribe first, and second, from the prelims point of view, focus on the map of Sudan. What are the neighboring countries of Sudan? Where is it that Sudan is located? Are there any water bodies nearby Sudan? So on and so forth. So let's focus on the Hakki Pikki tribe. Now, this is a tribe that, as we discussed, is struck in Sudan. Not a lot of them. The population in Sudan that is struck is just about 300 people. But a lot of them are also women and children as well. Some of them have been taken out of the conflict zone to the nearby cities. Sorry. Some of them have been displaced to a nearby city. However, many of them are still stuck there. Recently, many Karnataka leaders also made an appeal to our central government. And if you remember, even our central government kind of gave it a political turn. When this appeal was made that a lot of people from Karnataka are stuck in Sudan, please take them out, our foreign minister said that this is not good. We should say that Indians are stuck. We should not say that Indians of a certain tribe, of a certain religion, or of a certain region are stuck. And the foreign minister said that India is making as much efforts as possible. Now, why is this tribe in Sudan? What are they doing there? Why did they shift there? Let's try and understand this. So basically, the profession of the Hakki Pikki tribe is they are bird catchers. So originally they are bird catchers. They are known as people who have an expertise in catching birds. However, this is not a profession that they are following right now. In the past few decades, what they have done is they have actually started using their own ancient and traditional knowledge, and they make a lot of Ayurveda products, including Ayurveda and Adivasi oil as well. So they make many herbal oil products and then they sell it in the market. This is their main occupation, which they are following even in Sudan. Now, if you look at Sudan, Sudan is one of the poorest countries in the entire world. Because it's a poor country, what happens is, in a lot of places in Sudan, you don't have many doctors or hospitals. So when people need a kind of a medicine, when they are ill, they don't know where the doctor is, they don't know where hospitals are, they search for people in their locality who can give them some local medicine. This is what the Hakki Pikki tribe actually does. They prepare some Adivasi medicines, herbal medicines, because of their knowledge that they have acquired over the centuries. They also make herbal hair oil that they sell. This is their main interest. This is why they are present in not just Sudan. There are many other African countries where the Hakki Pikki tribe is present. As I said, the main market opportunity that they get in these kind of poor countries is, since they don't have many hospitals, since they don't have many doctors, this is where these herbal solutions can actually come into picture. Now, the Hakki Pikki tribe itself is not very educated. They lack modern education. In India, they are one of the most backward tribes in the entire country. So it's not that they have modern education. What they do is just based on what their traditional knowledge has taught them. Now, the words Hakki and Pikki itself will tell you the meaning of this. In the Kannada language, Hakki means bird, while Pikki means catchers. So their old traditional occupation was that they were bird catchers. However, in the past few years, since the bird population has also decreased, it's not very easy to catch birds. That is why they have shifted their traditional occupation. As per the last census, their population in Karnataka, which has the highest population of Hakki Pikki tribe, in Karnataka their population was close to 12,000. Also, they are known by different names in different states. In northern Karnataka, they are present in Maharashtra as well. It is believed that many of them originally belonged to Gujarat and Rajasthan, and then they migrated to Karnataka, where now they have their largest population. Now, as I said, most of them are uneducated. They do not have a lot of occupation. However, they do have knowledge about spices, herbal oils. This is what they sell. The history tells that they used to sell these kind of products in other parts of the world as well. However, later on, many of these found a good market, suitable market in poor African countries, mainly Sudan. And that is why many of them have migrated there in the past few years. This herbal oil business has been running well. As per reports, it requires an investment of 3 to 4 lakh rupees if you want to start this business in Sudan. And since there is a good demand for their products in Sudan, they are able to get back their investment in a few months. In fact, in 5 to 6 months, they're able to get back their investment. They are selling their products in other parts of Africa as well. In the neighboring countries of Sudan, for example, in Ethiopia, in Central African Republic also, their products are being sold. They are Hindu religious. Also, they celebrate most of the festivals that are celebrated in Hinduism. They have their own rituals as a tribe. Although they are one of the most backward tribes in India, but still they are not in the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. I hope all of you know what particularly vulnerable tribal groups are. Have you heard of this? Particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Have you heard of this? If not, it is my suggestion, please make sure you do read a bit about the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. The reason being that they have been a lot in the news. Why? I'll tell you 2 other reasons why they are in the news. One reason why they are in the news is because of the Padma Awards. The Padma Awards, and you can search about them. Why were Padma Awards given to people from certain tribe that became very famous? Then you saw what happened in the Oscars. The Oscar award for the best documentary was again given to a film that was based on a specific tribe. So make sure that you do read about the PVTG. Those who don't know, PVTG is particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So there are scheduled tribes, and among scheduled tribes there's a small group which are the most backward. They are called particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Please do read about them. They are extremely important. They have been in the news. Most of the information that we discuss about the Hakki Pikki tribe you can find here in this infographic as well. Please remember, the Hakki Pikki tribe are not included in the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Although there have been demands that we should have them also in this group, but so far they have not been included in the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Also, from the prelims point of view, I want all of you to make a note of the location of Sudan, because it is a country that is in the news. Make a list of which are the countries that share a border with Sudan. So there are about 7 countries that share a border with Sudan: Egypt, Libya, Chad, Central African Republic, South Sudan. South Sudan was earlier a part of Sudan only. It was just about 12 years back that it broke up into a separate country altogether. Then we have Ethiopia and we have Eritrea. Also make a note, it has its borders with the Red Sea. Please make a note of that, because map-based questions again are extremely common in the prelims examinations. from those places that are in the news. This was our second topic for the day. Let me quickly take up a few comments and then we'll move on to the third topic, that is about India's new space policy. Kishan is saying, who is deciding PVTG or not? Kishan, central government decides. Central government has the authority to decide. Jigar is saying, politics is turning regionalism into a major issue of India. What can be the solution? I wish there was a solution. The problem is, you and me, common people of India, unfortunately can't do a lot of things. It is on the politicians only. It is in their hands. Also, we have to understand the reality of democracy. Whenever there are elections coming up in any part of the country, you will see that politics becomes much more active in those parts of the country. And this is very natural. Also, let's not assume that this happens only in India. In every democracy all around the world, the same is the case. When the elections are approaching, every politician wants to make sure that some initiatives are taken that will help them in getting more votes. So it's not a good thing, regionalism, yes, but it is a reality and we have to contend with it. I do not think there is any solution except the fact that politicians themselves realize this, or the voters realize it. The voters maybe stop voting for those people who are dividing the country, but that will not happen. Let's not live in the wonderland. Then I have a question. On what basis can a tribe be considered as PVTG? So there was a committee called the Debar Commission that was formed that talked about the fact that we should categorize some of the scheduled tribes as PVTG. Read about that and you will get your answer. But basically the simple idea is the PVTGs are the most backward of all the scheduled tribes. There is no connection or relation between dogs and euthanasia. The idea is those dogs that have gone rabid, they should be euthanized. Euthanasia means they should be killed peacefully. But in India, it is not allowed. There is no connection between dogs and euthanasia as such. These are two very separate entities. In front of dog lovers, don't even ask this question. Don't even say this, euthanasia or dog, in one single sentence, because dog lovers will not like it. Then, tribal people shift by themselves or by the government? No, why would the government shift anyone to Sudan? No one, government doesn't shift anyone unless there are few instances where government relocates some people. It has happened in the past. Usually government doesn't shift anyone. Wherever you find good opportunity to shift yourself, why would the government say, you go to Sudan, you go to Singapore? No, that doesn't happen. It has happened in the past in few cases. I'll give you an example. So what happened was, a few decades back, Canada asked for India's help with Green Revolution. Government of India sent certain farmers from Punjab to Canada to help them with Green Revolution tactics. So that's a different thing altogether. Nikita, you have 4 dogs as your pets. Great job. Don't be offended. We are not talking about your pets. We are just talking about stray animals. I have also had a pet all my life. So yes. As long as you're taking good care of your pets, I'm sure they are safe and you are also safe. Okay, let's move ahead then. The next article that we have here is based on the Government of India's new space policy. New space policy 2023 has come into the picture. Please remember, whenever these kind of new policies are introduced, they are extremely important for the mains examination. Please do remember this. There have been many questions asked based on policies. For example, even when the policies are not in the news. National Child Policy, randomly, that was asked a few years back in the mains examination. So these policy-based questions are important, especially in the space sector where the Government of India anyways takes a lot of interest. Our space sector has been doing very well. Usually with space sector, you do see a lot of questions. So what exactly is this new policy all about? What does it say? Let's try and understand. This new space policy says that entire space sector in India will be run by 4 different entities with 4 different functions. Please remember this. There are 4 distinct entities that will run the entire space program of India. Number 1, first entity will be called InSpace. All these entities, by the way, exist even today. It's not that these are new entities. These exist today only. However, their functions are now well defined. So first entity in space, second entity ISRO, third entity NSIL, and fourth entity will be Department of Space. There are 4 different entities having 4 different functions under this National Space Policy. Let's look at these functions. First, in space, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. As the name suggests, this will be the authority that will give permission for space launches. It will also look into buying and selling of satellites. It will also see how data has to be used, where data has to be distributed, etc. It will ensure that academicians who are working in the field of space, research facilities, they are connected with the government of India in the field of space. The second body is ISRO, as we know. ISRO will now mainly be focused on space infrastructure, space transportation, and outer space. So ISRO will not be looking into marketing now. ISRO will not be looking into collaborating with other universities, etc. ISRO will only be focusing on India's outer space exploration and manufacturing space systems, nothing else. Third entity, NSIL. This will take the place of Antrix. As you know, Antrix was ISRO's commercial arm. So NSIL will do this job. They will try and make the best use of ISRO's technology to get contracts from outside India or contracts from the private market. Antrix or NSIL, they will go to other countries, they will ask them, do you want us to send your satellites to space? Do you want to buy some technology from ISRO, etc.? So they will see how our technologies can be used commercially. This will be the job of NSIL. And in the end, fourth will be Department of Space that will make policy guidelines and they will coordinate amongst all the 4 different organizations. This is what the National Space Policy says. Again, I will repeat, National Space Policy or Indian Space Policy says that Department of Space, ISRO, NSIL and InSpace will be 4 entities having different functions in the space sector. Please do remember these functions. Also, if you have some time, and it will not take a lot of time, the official document of this new space policy is only 11 pages. It is only 11 pages, the entire document of this National Space Policy. It is only 11 pages. I would suggest you, and it is not even very long. 11 pages includes intro also, includes the first page also. So I would suggest you, just Google it. You will be taken to ISRO's website. It has an 11-page PDF. You can download it. It is in the point-based format. So in every single page, they have given what are the objectives of these entities. So ISRO's objectives, bullet points, InSpace objectives, bullet points. I would really suggest take some time out. It will hardly take half an hour to read about this. These kind of policies are extremely, extremely important. Also, the National Space Policy says that the private sector participation will be encouraged. We would want more private sector to come in. As you know, even today, there are many startups in the field of space working in India. Their space satellites are launched by ISRO, but there are many satellites made by private sector today. The policy, however, does not talk about FDI right now. This is still pending. The government will have to take a decision whether or not they will be open to foreign direct investment in the field of space or not. The policy also says that satellite data will be made available, satellite images will be made available to the common public. This is an important fact that you must remember for prelims. Please do remember this. As per the space policy, ISRO will make public satellite images having a distance of greater than 5 meters. So satellite image where 2 adjacent pixels are 5 meters or more apart from each other, those images will be made public by ISRO. Also, those with having a distance of less than 30 centimeters will only be made public after the permission of InSpace because they are for national security considerations. Now, what does it mean? Let me try and explain this to you in very simple terms. You all know who owns the GPS. Who owns the GPS, by the way? Don't say Google, please. Who owns the GPS? Whose technology is GPS? Okay, let's try and understand this. Yes, it is American military. It is a US military that owns the GPS. They had started it. So basically, GPS has two versions. There are two versions of GPS. One is military version and one is civil version. All these apps that we use, Google Map, Uber, the food that you order, you are able to track where the location of the person is on your app, right? All that is linked to GPS, but that is for civil purposes. The military purposes is much more accurate. That is why you see a lot of time when you have booked the cab is standing somewhere else, you are somewhere else, and the cab driver is calling you, I am here, where are you? And you also tell him, I am also here, where are you? Because the civil version of GPS is not very accurate. The military version is much more accurate. Military version is used by US military only. That is accurate 2 centimeters. So they are extremely accurate. They are so accurate because of GPS only. They are able to find out the location where is Osama bin Laden, where are different terrorists, and they can go in their house and they can attack that terrorist. They can see that while sitting in America. All that is extremely, extremely accurate because that's the military version. And that is what other countries also do. In India's case also, the Navik or our own navigation system that we are developing, that will also be the same. Civil version available to everyone, military version only for the military. Here also, ISRO data that it collects, some data is very accurate, that will not be shared. That accurate data will only be shared with permission from InSpace. Other public data will be shared. So this is what the new space policy is all about. This is a vision of the policy. I have taken this screenshot from the policy document only, and as I said, it's just an 11-page document written in very spaced out manner, so you can read it very easily. The vision is to augment India's space capabilities, to use it for India's security, protection, peaceful exploration. Please make sure that you read about this. This is extremely, extremely important. This was the third topic from the mains point of view. Now we have a few prelims specific topics lined up for you, but before that, again, let me take up a few questions before I go ahead. Yes, space is a union list subject. Yes. Govardhanam is saying policies are only oral telling. No. Oral telling is not a term that you should use. They are not oral, they are written only. What you mean to say is, do policies or do these policies have a legal backing or not? So no, they don't have a legal backing. Policies are just frameworks or are just suggestions. They have not been converted into laws. I'll give you another example. All of us have read the new education policy, right? The new education policy has come in. It has a lot of very new ideas. The 10 plus 2 plus 3 system will be removed. In class 11, now you can choose commerce with arts, with one physics subject, etc., etc. All of that will happen, right? All of you have read about this, that national education policy will have all of that. But that has not been implemented so far because it is not compulsory. Policies become compulsory only when a law is passed on them. So over here also for new space policy, Indian space policy, we do not really have a legal backing for these policies. These are just suggestions for now, unless a government tries to implement them. When will ISRO launch their Chandrayaan-2 mission? Good morning. Chandrayaan-2 mission was launched a long time back. I'm not sure whether you skipped it or not, but breaking news for you. Chandrayaan-2 mission was launched a long time back. Maybe you're referring to Chandrayaan-3. If that is what your question is, then yes, Chandrayaan-3 will happen sometime soon. Or if your question is Mangalyaan-2, then I have a question. Name of the policy, again name of the policy, Indian Space Policy. Just type Indian Space Policy 2023, National Space Policy 2023, you will be able to get it. Haritha is saying, is space policy present in foreign policy? It's not an essential part of foreign policy, but it is an essential component because space right now is a sector where we collaborate with other countries as well, number one. For example, we have collaborated in a lot of missions with NASA. Secondly, space now has also become a sector where Indian government is earning a lot of foreign exchange. So ISRO, and we will read it in just the next news only, ISRO just does launch a lot of satellites for other countries with which we actually earn a lot of money. Thirdly, it is also part of our soft power, as you may call it. The data that we collect with ISRO, we actually provide that data to a lot of our friendly nations. For example, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, most of the SAARC countries, India does share our ISRO data with them so that it can help them as well. So it does improve our relationship with the foreign countries as well. So yes, space also is a part of how India's foreign policy is maintained. Let's now move ahead to the prelims point of view. So a few news stories from the prelims point of view. We are again focusing on space only. ISRO has just released 2 Singapore satellites. Now you don't have to remember the details of what satellites were launched, but just remember how ISRO earns money also for the government of India through these commercial launches. By the way, tell me this now, we just read about the 4 different entities that will run the space sector in India. Now tell me this, out of those 4 entities, which would be the one that would have gone to Singapore and said, we will launch a satellite, give us the money? Tell me this, out of the 4 entities that we just read, which of the entities is responsible for striking this kind of a deal with Singapore? Let me see how attentive you were. Okay, seems that most of you are very attentive. Thank you so much. NSIL, yes. We just discussed NSIL, that will replace Antrix. They will be the one who will be taking care of ISRO's commercial adventures. So ISRO has launched this satellite using PSLV. PSLV, as you know, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. So there are different types of launch vehicles. There is PSLV, there is GSLV, and there is a new one also, SSLV. For ISRO, PSLV has always been the most successful one. PSLV is considered as the workhorse of ISRO. Most of the launches are always successful. GSLV is for much heavier rockets. It is for much heavier rocket. This is for lighter rockets or lighter satellites. SSLV, small satellite launch vehicle. This is for very, very small satellites. This is for small satellite launch vehicles. Most of the launches that ISRO does is through PSLV only because we trust it the most. PSLV is used for not very heavy satellite. GSLV is for much more heavier satellites. Now, please do remember about PSLV. There are a few things that you must remember. PSLV or any rocket launcher has different stages. Now, please listen to this very carefully. This information might be important for you, especially if you are not from science background, if you have not read science, please listen to this very carefully. Now, whenever a rocket is launched, these rocket launchers have different stages. Now, in the different stages, we usually have 2 types of fuels. Either we have solid fuel or we use liquid fuel in different stages. So there are different stages with different fuels. Now, what is the difference between solid fuel and liquid fuel? Solid fuel means more power. More power. Liquid fuel means slightly lesser power. However, in case of solid fuel, you will not be able to maneuver very easily. Means less maneuvering. This allows you more maneuvering. What is the difference between the two? When you have solid fuel means the thrust will be much more, but changing direction will not be that easy. Just take a difference between if you're riding a bicycle versus if you're riding a bulldozer. If you're riding a bicycle, you can turn it very easily. On the other hand, if you're riding a bulldozer, if you're riding a truck, then moving that truck or changing direction of the truck is very difficult, right? That is the difference between the two. Now, that is why, please remember this. This is a rule. Whenever any rocket launcher is launched, the first stage is always solid. The first stage will always be solid. Why? Because in the first stage, when you are moving from the ground, you require the most thrust. Doesn't matter PSLV, GSLV, whichever rocket that you are thinking of, doesn't really matter. First stage will always be solid. Then after that, it depends upon what kind of a stage that you would want. Second stage in PSLV is liquid, so that you can change directions. Third stage again solid, that allows you to again leave the Earth atmosphere. And the last stage, when you have to change direction and put the satellite into the correct direction in the end, that in the end will always be the liquid stage. So PSLV has these 4 stages: solid, liquid, solid, liquid. With GSLV it is different. With different rocket it's a different matter altogether. Also, you might have heard about something called cryogenic. You might have heard about something called cryogenic fuel. Now cryogenic fuel is different. Why? Cryogenic fuel is liquid, but it gives a lot more power. That is the difference. That is the quality of cryogenic fuel. Cryogenic fuel is liquid, but even then it gives a lot more thrust. That is why cryogenic technology is extremely, extremely important. So please remember, there are differences between PSLV and GSLV. Amongst PSLV, there are 4 stages that we have: solid, liquid, solid, liquid. Solid has its own good parts, liquid has its own good parts. Cryogenic is considered as the best form of fuel right now because it is liquid, lesser weight, but it can still give the kind of thrust that we need. Also, there's SSLV that was in the news. Please do remember the difference between the two. SSLV, small satellite launch vehicle used for smaller satellites. The best part about SSLV is that it can be manufactured or it can be prepared, assembled very fast. For PSLV, you require 60 days to actually prepare the rocket launcher for a satellite launch. For SSLV, within 3 days, we can actually assemble and prepare for a launch. Yes, SSLV doesn't have a lot of capacity to send heavy satellites, but for very small satellites, you can do that. So it really depends upon how it works. SSLV and GSLV are different. Now, then there are different versions of GSLV, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, etc. depending on how many different boosters have you actually attached to it. That is your core science and technology part. I'm not going into that. When you read about science and technology, you will read about that. That is as much knowledge I wanted to give you in this topic. Next is the topic about how the government of India is trying to make India drug free. The government of India is trying to make the country drug free by 2047. And for doing that, the government of India is trying to control the cultivation of all these drugs, be it poppy, cannabis, etc. Now, most of these drugs, be it opium or cannabis, they also have certain medicinal value. They are used in certain medicines, but the problem is that most of these are actually misused and sold off in the black market. The government of India has now tried a new idea. The idea is now the government of India has asked the district superintendent of police, that is the SP, that it will be your responsibility to cut down on the cultivation of these banned substances. The more that you cut down on the cultivation of these banned substances, the better will be your rating. So government of India gives a rating to all these IAS, IPS officers about how they work. Based on this rating, they get their postings, they get awards from the government of India. The government has said from now onwards, if you become the IPS officers, by the way, that will be your responsibility. So Superintendent of Police will have to make sure that the use and cultivation of banned substances doesn't happen. Home Ministry has also said that the law in India that we have, Prevention of Illicit Traffic in Narcotics, Drug and Psychotropic Substances, also called as the NDPS Act. The Home Ministry has said that we will be using it to ensure that no one under this act goes free. Everyone that is indulging in these kind of activities is caught and is given punishment. Now, Government of India has something called NIDAN, NIDAAN. Please remember this. It is a database that the Government of India has prepared. It's a database of photographs, fingerprints, court orders of all the people who are caught under this act. So do remember the name NIDAN as well. This is a database of everyone who has been caught under this act. of cultivating drugs or selling drugs or consuming drugs, etc., all their information will be published at the Nidan portal. Now, this is the act that we were talking about, the NDPS Act, which makes it illegal to consume and to cultivate narcotic drugs such as cannabis, opium, poppy straw, psychotropic substances, etc. This was an act that was originally introduced in 1985, and after that it has been amended multiple times as well. The nodal agency that is responsible for implementing this act is Narcotics Control Bureau. Remember, NCB was in the news when they caught some big superstar's son, because apparently the son had certain drugs with him. All of you would know. If you don't know, good. You are good kids. So NCB, as you know, is the agency that is responsible for implementing this kind of a law. But the problem is, if you look at the bigger cities in India, even the smaller cities in India, these kind of drugs, etc., are found. Everyone has certain sources from which they can actually find this drug. Now, let me ask you one question, by the way. If you look at cannabis, cannabis is a variety of plant, and there are multiple plants that fall under this category. Tell me this question, or tell me this fact. Why is it that bhang is allowed in India, by the way? Or let this be your homework. How is it that bhang is allowed in India? There are government shops that are selling bhang. There are government licensed shops that actually sell bhang. How is it that it is allowed? Why is it that the law has made an exception in this? Do read about this. It's a pretty simple question to answer, and many people have already been answering it in the chat. If you don't know, please do read about this. The simple idea is that if you look at the plant, the leaves are exempted. The leaf part you can use. So bhang is made up of leaves, and that is why you can actually use it. Doesn't mean that you should start using it, but just telling you this is allowed because it is in the leaves part. Okay. Now a couple of other things that you must know. India's location also makes it very dangerous for India, because India is in the middle of two of the biggest opium producing regions in the world. Please remember, there are two regions. One is called the Golden Crescent. Crescent means this moon shape. This is crescent. Not moon, but yes, I would say 1/5 of the moon. So this is the Golden Crescent. Golden Crescent basically is areas in Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan. They supply 90% of the world's illegal opium. On the other hand, towards India's eastern side, we have Golden Triangle. Golden Triangle is Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand. This is a Golden Triangle. The problem is, because we have these areas very nearby to our borders, it becomes very easy for these drugs to illegally enter India. So there's a lot of illegal marketing that happens. This is why a lot of these places, especially nearby the borders, are affected by this area. Those who are asking what is bhang, what is opium, what is hemp, what is marijuana, what is cocaine, it's good that you don't know, and let's leave it that way, because UPSC also will not ask you what is opium, what is bhang, what is marijuana. Till the time that you don't know, let it be like that. Okay, let's now move on to the next article. The next article is about a festival that is in the news called the Pushkaralu festival. Again, if I am not pronouncing it correctly, and if there is someone who is a Telugu speaker, you might know it better. This is called the Pushkaralu festival that has now been organized, or that has started being organized in Varanasi. It has been organized as a 12-day festival. Now, this is a festival mainly that is dedicated to rivers. Since it's taking place in Varanasi, so this is being dedicated to the Ganga river. However, it is celebrated and it is dedicated to other rivers as well. There are a total of 12 sacred rivers that are usually worshipped in this festival. Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, Bhim, Tapti, Narmada, Saraswati, Tungbhadra, Sindh, and Pranhita. These are the 12 rivers. It is considered that all these rivers also have their individual zodiac signs. Please do remember the name of this festival. You have a lot of questions in the prelims examination in match the column form. based on the names of certain festivals. So you will get 3-4 festivals in one column, and you will have to match where are they celebrated or by whom are they celebrated. So this festival, as I said, is celebrated mainly by Telugu speaking people, and it is taking place in Varanasi after 12 years. The UP government has made a lot of arrangements for this because lakhs and lakhs of devotees are coming to Varanasi to celebrate this. Now we come to the last news of the day. Tell me, how many of you watched Kantara? How many of you watched the movie Kantara? I hope you did. Just in case you did not, do watch it, because now apparently it is important for the UPSC exam as well. Okay, those who watched it, great. Those who did not watch it, so those who watched it, you will be able to understand better. So basically, the entire movie is based on a very famous ritual tradition. Again, if my pronunciation is not correct, I'm sorry in advance. This is actually a kind of a festival that is celebrated in south part of India, mainly by Tulu speaking population. Tulu, as you know, is a South Indian language. There were a lot of news stories about Tulu because Tulu speakers also want their language to be included in the 8th schedule. And Tulu speaking population celebrate this festival that is called Bhoota Kola. Again, if my pronunciation is not right, I'm sorry in advance, but you would have seen this festival being celebrated in the Kantara movie multiple times. So it is actually based on a ritual tradition. The simple idea is that you are actually worshipping a deity. Now, this is mainly, and if you can see this photo here, this is how the performer actually dresses up, and I'll just show you a photo first and then I'll come back. So this is as you can see, this is how the performer dresses up, and those who have seen the movie would know who this person is. This was the person who played the main lead, that is Rishabh Shetty. Now, what is this article all about, or what is the festival all about? You must know, because again, this was in the news. As I said, it's a kind of a ritual dance that is performed in the open, and the main idea is that you have to worship your deity in the form of that dance. It is considered that the artist who is performing this, at the time of the performance, the god resides in that particular artist. Please remember, the artist who is performing, the artist who is dancing, it is considered that the god has resided inside the artist during that particular dance. This is celebrated mainly in Dakshin Kannada and Udupi districts of Karnataka. Also, it is similar to a very similar festival celebrated in Kerala also, that is called Theyam. But we are mainly focusing on Bhoota Kola, that is celebrated in Karnataka. As I said, the attire is very different. The person who celebrates or the person who performs usually wears woven palm leaves. The face is painted in yellow or orange mainly. It is celebrated by speakers of the Tulu language. The idea is to worship the deity. The name of the deity is, or there are multiple names of the deity that are used, Kola, Nema, and there are other names also that are used. The idea is simple, that the dancer right now is the form of God, and that is why a lot of people, when you see those who are witnessing the performance, a lot of people stand with their folded hands because they think that the performer at that point of time is the incarnation of God itself. Many people have slightly different interpretation of it. Most people consider this as an interpretation, as a ritual where you are worshipping your deity. Some also think that you are worshipping the Bhoot. Now, Bhoot, as you know, is a Hindi word mainly. Now, there are different versions of who you are worshipping, but the idea that everyone follows mainly is that it is someone that you worship, it is someone that you look up to, and that person's soul right now is in the performer. This is performed, as I said, by a trained person. It's a pretty aggressive kind of a dance. The performer is also feared and respected by the community because he is seen as a performer on behalf of the god. There are drums and music, etc. that is played along with that. There are different types of names that are given to the deity at that point of time. Panjurli, again, this is the name that you would have seen in the movie also. Those who have watched the movie, they would have seen this Panjurli was a name given to the performer. This is one of the names that is given. Apart from that also, there are many other popular names that are given to the performer at that point of time, in whom it is considered that the soul of the god resides at that point of time. This is how the performer looks like, and this was a performer, and this was a person who played the main role in the movie. This brings us to the end of today's session. I hope you learned something new today. These are a couple of practice questions for all of you. Do read them very, very carefully. These are long questions. One of them, in fact, this one has been asked by UPSC in the past. So this is a previous year question. The second one, first one also is important. Please see if you can write answers to these. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day ahead. We will see you 10 a.m. tomorrow. Be on time, and I hope all you are giving as many practice questions as possible. Make sure that you move over to our Telegram channel, attend the quiz based on the articles that we have discussed to revise whatever we have learned today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.